Hello friends, my name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of the new book, Enlightened Medicine, Your Power to Get Well Now, an integrative approach to healing the 7 deadly lifestyle diseases. And welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about why do pharmaceutical companies advertise? Is it like customers were hard to find? In my last videos on Enlightened Medicine, Your Power to Get Well Now, I gave the statistic that 150 million Americans suffer from at least one chronic lifestyle illness, which is roughly half of all Americans. And did you know that 59% of all Americans take at least one prescription pill daily? This is not talking about antibiotics or something short term. We're talking about on a consistent basis, 59%. It's totally nuts. So that leaves the question for me when I was doing research on this book. You know when you know something is bad and then you start researching more on that particular thing and then you realize actually how bad it is? And it was almost better before you knew how bad it was, because then you could just kind of close your eyes to it and totally ignore it and not really pay any attention to it and just go about your daily life, living your life in ignorance, and that's almost less painful than knowing the truth. And when I was doing research for this book, when I started doing research on pharmaceutical companies, on pharmaceuticals in general, and the statistics involved in this process of Western medicine and how chronic lifestyle illness has taken over the US population, and not only that, but we're extremely drugged in this population as well as the prominence in prescription advertising, which is insane. And you'll see as this video is unfolding how insane it actually is. And, one question I had in mind is that, were pharmaceutical companies really hurting prior to their first advertisement in 1983? So to give you a little bit of history, in 1983 was the first TV ad for prescription pills. That ad was immediately rejected by the American Medical Association, saying it was immoral and unethical to run a prescription ad direct to consumers, and that's what it's called, DTC, or direct to consumer ad. But obviously, as strong as the AMA is, they did not win, because today pharmaceutical companies spend over $6.5 billion in direct to consumer advertising. You only have to turn on your TV, listen to Pandora, open your internet browser, or listen to a channel such as Hulu or even the radio to know how prominent prescription ads are in the marketplace. It's totally insane. I'll give you a little bit more on that statistic as the video unfolds. But it really made me wonder. It's like one day a pharmaceutical company, the board was meeting and they were like, what to do? What to do? People are just not as sick as they were before. Why? We're not making money. Why? What do we need to do in order to get these people to buy our drugs? The doctors are not pushing the drugs like we need them to. And some other board member says, well, maybe we need to push them directly to the patients themselves. We need to make them believe that they need these prescription medications. And once they start taking them, they're pretty much hooked. They're a guaranteed customer. And around the board it says, well, that's unethical, it's not really moral, it's not good to wish that people were sick. And the president of the company says, well, bottom line, we need to make money here. And there you go. And then the prescription ad started from 1983 and moving forward, and now it's become the most prominent advertising in the marketplace. And it is totally insane. And yes, it is still unethical and immoral. And what they know is that once they have you, you are hooked for life. It doesn't matter if it's a blood pressure medication, if it's a cholesterol lowering medication, or if it's a sleeping pill. They know they have you for life. They have you hook, line, and sinker. And just to take a little look at this and like the implications of the ads, the advertising, the direct-to-consumer advertising. So to put in perspective, $6.4 billion. $6.4 billion. Can you even conceive $6.4 billion? We're not talking about a million. We're not even talking about 100 million. We're not even talking about 1 billion. We're talking about $6.4 billion in 1 year and 365 days in direct-to-consumer advertising to get you hooked on prescription pills and prescription drugs. And if you think I'm being a little sensationalist, it's absolutely not what is happening here. What is happening is we have become complacent to this. We've become a society of acceptance to this. We've just accepted that every single time you turn on your TV, every other commercial is going to be about a prescription drug. That every time we open the internet browser, that flashing in our face is the reason why we need to take prescription pills. And we have this false information of, prescription pills are expensive because a lot of research goes into these pills. But $6.4 billion in advertising to you, do you think they could whittle back on some of that $6.4 billion and lower the price of prescription medications? Hello? That is a lot of prescription cost lowering. But what they know is that the more people they get addicted to prescription medications, the more income they're going to be able to have. It's all about company bottom lines. Now, certainly there are drugs that help save people's lives, and there are drugs that help to do things such as replace thyroid. For example, I take a thyroid medication that helps to replace the thyroid that was lost during thyroid cancer. I'm not really talking about those life-saving drugs. What I am more talking about is getting you hooked on the things that can be replaced by lifestyle changes, such as cholesterol-lowering drugs, blood pressure-lowering drugs, sleeping medications, pain medications, certain types of cancer medications. I'm talking about a whole host of medications. They talk about these medications for like IBS or if you have frequent urination. And they've actually discovered that cystitis, or this urge for frequent urination, is more caused by our caffeine consumption in this country rather than a real disorder. And irritable bowel syndrome is more caused by the diet that we happen to have that is so high in fatty and fried foods that if you were just to taper off of some of those fatty and fried foods, that you would not have IBS. Same thing with like heartburn medication. It's due to lifestyle, diet, and the choices that you make each and every day. But the pharmaceutical companies wouldn't have you believing that. They would have you believe that you absolutely need to take this pill. And they're spending $6.4 billion convincing you that you need to take this pill. And have you ever noticed how long those ads are too? They're extremely long. If you get a McDonald's commercial, it's like 30 seconds, boom, it's over. Whereas these prescription ads are like 2 minutes long. It's totally insane how much they're spending on this to get you hooked. So to put $6.4 billion into perspective, let's just look at the top 5 advertisers in the US. The top 5. These are the guys that are spending the most money on direct-to-consumer advertising yearly in the entire country. Let's just look at these statistics. AT&T is our top advertiser below prescription pharmaceutical companies, and they spend $1.44 billion in 2014. In 2014, Verizon spent $1.29 billion. Geico, which once I learned this, I am definitely never getting Geico, they spend $1.6 billion in direct-to-consumer advertising. McDonald's, the 4th biggest advertiser in the US, spent $935 million. And Chevrolet, the 5th most advertised brand in the US, spent $888 million in 2014 in the US. Now let's tally these up. Now, when we tally these up, all 5 of the top advertising brands, they don't even come close to $6.4 billion that the pharmaceutical companies spend on advertising to you to try to keep you sick, to try to keep you hooked. Because let's be honest here. And this is where honesty really hurts. It's like, oh, I really liked being in ignorant bliss. Ignorant bliss is a much better place for me to be in. So much nicer to be in ignorant bliss and to really believe that they're doing us a lot of good. They want to keep you hooked and sick. They don't make you better. Are you kidding me? They want you to be a consistent customer. They do not want you to get better, because if they did, they wouldn't spend $6.4 billion on advertising. They wouldn't have to. They could come up with some other way to make money than keeping you sick, but they know. That's why they're spending so much money, is they know that once they have you for life. And you are a repeat customer. You're a repeat customer because once you take one, you have like an 80 or 90% chance that you'll take another one for life, and then add a third to quell the side effects from those first and second prescription pills. And then pretty soon you're gonna need a fourth one to quell the symptoms of the first three. Do you understand how this works? Because 20% of all Americans have at least 5 prescription pills that they take daily. And that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is that there are so many side effects. They make you so sick that you need other pills to pacify the symptoms of all the prescription medications that you're taking. It's totally nuts. It's totally insane. The scales have officially tipped in the direction that's not in your favor, or in the favor of 59% of all Americans. And that number is rising. Now that number, 59%, is a couple years old. So I'm certain that by now the number has gone up. Let's just put things into perspective. Why am I so harping on prescription drugs? One of the reasons that I'm harping on prescription drugs is because of the dangers of prescription pills. So in 2017, 128,000 Americans died from adverse effects to prescription pills. Every single year, between 1.5 and 2.7 million Americans are hospitalized each year for adverse effects to prescription medications. Now, these are people who are taking the medications according to the instructions on the pill bottle. They're not abusing them. These are just incidences of people who are actually taking them as prescribed. Insane, right? Between 1.5 million and 2.7 million each year. And once these 2.7 million people are hospitalized for adverse reactions to the drugs that they're taking, an additional 77,000 die in the hospital from these adverse drug reactions. And that's added to the other one of the people that just straight up die because of the adverse effects of these prescription medications. And the problem gets even worse than that. We are extremely addicted in this country. We're addicted to opioids. We're addicted to psychotropic drugs such as antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications that are, some of them are extremely addictive. We are addicted to ADD and ADHD drugs. And if you watch some of my videos on alcoholism, what I learned is that a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts will crush some of these pills and snort them as drugs, especially drugs like Adderall or ADHD medications, and even prescription pill medications. They will snort them. That's how they get their high. But we're giving them out like candy. Do you realize this? They're doing these ads for you to get addicted to them so you stay hooked on them. As a country, the US, the United States, we consume 80% of the world's opioid prescription medications. 80%. We only represent 4.6% of the world's population. We only represent 4.6% of the world population. Yet we consume 80% of the world's opioids. This number is even scarier. We consume 99% of the world's supply of hydrocodone, the drug that is in Vicodin. Hello? That either says that we are the saddest country and we have the most pain because we're so sad and horribly sick, or it just means that we're horribly addicted. 99% of the world's supply of hydrocodone. And we wonder why we're so sick. We wonder why we're so miserable. We wonder why things are declining so fast in the US. And like I said, I'm not saying this to be an alarmist. There are certainly documentaries out there to make you feel like, oh, this is just so targeted toward doom and gloom. It's just so targeted to make me think things in a certain way. I'm not really here for that. I'm here to teach you how to wake up and realize actually what is going on. Just wake up and realize the truth of what's going on, because it's not going to happen at a corporate level. They're making way, way, way too much money. Medical companies are making too much money. Prescription pharmaceutical companies are making too much money. Medical supply companies are making too much money. I can't even imagine how many hundreds of billions of dollars that industry is making. And they're making it on your ill health. That is how they're making it. And if you were to be well, they would lose money. They don't want to lose money. So they're banking on you staying sick. And they're banking on more people in the US getting sick. That's really the truth in the matter. So with all that said, with all of those statistics and all that said, like, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this first to make you aware when you start viewing those prescription ads. But also when you go to your doctor, not to ask for the prescription pills. That's first and foremost. Second of all, if they do prescribe something to you, like a blood pressure lowering medication or a cholesterol lowering medication, ask if there's something else you can do first. If there are lifestyle modifications. Now, in this book, Enlightened Medicine, Your Power to Get Well Now, the last 2/3 of the book are all about things you can do to help get you better. Now, the one thing is that the onus is on you. You actually have to take action to reverse this trend. You have to take action to take money away from the pharmaceutical companies so that they don't become so rich, so they don't have such a powerful voice, and that they don't keep people sick. Because it's not just you. You can say, well, I'm just one person. It has a ripple effect because it goes through families. You know, chronic diseases typically run through families. So for example, if you have one obese parent or two obese parents, the children have like an 80% likelihood to be obese as well and have problems early on, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. And so chronic lifestyle diseases, because they're affected by lifestyle, they tend to run in families. So again, they have that ripple effect. Not only that, but your friends too. So you have a direct influence on your friends as well by the lifestyle that you live. And in this book, I talk about how I have a full chapter on herbal medicine, and I talk about God has given us an entire pharmacy on earth. We don't need to make up drugs. We already have them at our disposal, and most of them work beautifully with zero side effects and practically no cost. It's just very, very low cost to treat yourself with herbal remedies and herbal medications. Now, here's the thing. I said that the onus is on you. It's on you because you have to start taking responsibility for your health and well-being and your healthy lifestyle. If you don't take responsibility, then basically you're putting your life in the hands of these pharmaceutical companies. You really are. I mean, to be frank with you, that is exactly what you're doing. And I would just, it's almost like it's a wish that I have to not let that happen. But the trend is going so far in the direction of having 60, 70, 80, 90% of all Americans being dependent on these prescription pills that when you're there, when you're at that 90%, it almost becomes too late to reverse the trend in a very quick way because you're already dependent on that. And people who are dependent on prescription pills to live, they're very afraid to do something else to get off of them. Because again, there are side effects to taking them, but there are also side effects to withdrawing from them. And we don't think about that. And because people are so dependent on these drugs for living, it's really hard for them to know, like, is what I'm doing enough? And it's almost better to change your lifestyle habits now so what you're doing will be enough. And so you don't have to depend on them and you don't have to go on them. But you do have to be proactive. It's not about turning your head to the other side and not looking at the problem. It's looking the problem straight in the face and saying, I see this. I see what I'm doing is destroying my life, and I see what I'm not doing is destroying my life. And I want my money to go to my family. I want my money to go to charitable organizations. I want my money to go toward the well-being of those around me. And I don't want my money to go toward pharmaceutical companies who are being so irresponsible in advertising in these billion dollar amounts just to keep people sick and addicted. And the thing is that when you have money, you can make the decision. You're a consumer and you have consumer power, and you have the power of choice. And the power of choice says, I can spend my money responsibly, and I can spend my money for the greater good and the higher good. And when you spend money on pharmaceuticals, that's not for the greater good and it's not for the higher good. And it takes one person at a time. It takes a grassroots movement to change this trend. And it's your voice that counts. It's not, like I said, it's not going to happen from the corporate level. It never will. They're making way too much money on you. And unfortunately, that's what talks. Money talks. And if money talks, then money can also talk to reverse the trend. So by you refusing to spend money on pharmaceuticals and getting everyone around you to refuse and move more toward a healthier lifestyle and move toward herbal medicine, moving toward healthier practices day to day, taking this book, honestly, taking this book, sharing it with people, and then just take a chapter and start integrating these healthy practices. There are so many healthy practices infused into this book that if you were to do all of them, you would be so incredibly healthy. But even if you were to just do half of them, you would be so much more healthy than you are right now. And that, my friend, is really what life is all about. It's about living healthfully so that you can go about your life living your life purpose. Thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel below. Share this video with friends, family, and your dog. Please support me on Patreon. I don't get paid for these videos. You can pledge $1 a month, $5 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can afford to move and put your money toward a greater good. www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin, and I will see you in the next video.